Alright, parents and kids at home, this is a video to kind of model subtracting integers. So you guys are used to adding integers, but now we're going to subtract integers. And the moment you start subtracting integers, so say we're going to subtract 4 minus a negative 3. And I'm going to put this in parentheses because it makes it visually work better. The moment I do this, you can't just start building it. You can't just say, alright, 4 positives, subtract negative 3. Then you're like, I don't have any negatives here to subtract. So whenever you start subtracting, you always want to start with a neutral what? Neutral
field.
Yeah, neutral field. And a neutral field simply means that what's on your working space adds up to 0. Adds up to 0. And so look at this. 10 negatives and 10 positives is 0. We have a neutral field. And then I encourage my students to basically read it like a sentence from left to right. And this is obviously a very introductory, slow way of doing it. And this is the plan because we want our students to understand it at a very basic level so they can transfer that to more complex problems. Alright, so let's try it. 4, we want this board, this working space to say 4. So here's 4, because that's 0, therefore this makes it now 4. And now we literally do what it says. Subtract a negative 3. Alright, subtract negative 3. I'm going to remove 3 negatives. Alright, well, I don't have my answer yet because I have all of these negatives and positives. So let's 0 pair those out. And my answer is 7. What's another way of looking at this? Well, 4, if I start off at 4, here's my 4, and I go to subtract, that means I would want to head this direction, but then it says, wait, a negative 3 means go the other direction, and I would end up at 7. Okay? In a sense, you want to do the inverse of subtracting because of this subtract a negative. That's one way of doing it. This is another way of doing it. The moment at home, if you're viewing this video, the moment you see subtraction, you need to start off with a neutral field. So, let's try another one. How about negative 4 minus a negative 5? Alright, if you're subtracting, students, if we're subtracting, what should we always start off with? A new you can do it, say it. Neutral field. Good kids.
Oh.
Good students. Oh, you're killing me. Alright. So since we're subtracting, we're going to start off with a neutral field. Otherwise, it's very difficult. I think it might be impossible to model it correctly. Alright. So read it like a sentence. Negative 4. Now this board says negative 4. And I'm going to literally do what it says. Subtract a negative 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I just removed 5 from there. And I don't have an answer because I have to cancel out my positives and negatives. So those 5 positives and these 5 negatives make 0. Those 4 negatives and these 4 positives make 0. My answer is 1. Wow. Well, let's look at the number line. I start off at negative 4. Here am I here. And this says subtract a negative 5. So subtract means go to the left. But wait, you're subtracting a negative 5, which means do the opposite of subtraction. That means go to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And look where you end up. You end up at 1. That is the way of explaining with a number line and counters. Thank you. Thank you, assistant. Let's try another one.
Not your assistant.
7.
What?
Let's try this one. 3 minus 4. Now some of my students will go, 4. That's the answer. Well, no, not when you start integers, likely this isn't going to be the answer, and I'm going to start off at the very beginning. Let's use counters. So let's, since we're subtracting, class, since we're subtracting, we should start with what?
What?
Neutral?
Neutral field.
Oh my goodness, okay.
Here's what you wanted.
Neutral fields. So look at, we can depict this even with this scenario. Alright, we want to start off with 3. I have positive 3. And then subtract 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're not done yet because I just subtracted 7. But we still have positives and negatives, so let's, I have 5 of each. That goes to 0, 0. What's my answer? Negative 4. Alright, well let's look at the number line. Start off at 3. Here we are at 3. And it says subtract 7. Well, subtraction's to the left, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Negative 4. Negative 4. So that's just a reminder that for you guys, so when you're at home, if you need something to remind you, you can view this video and it will send you on the correct path. Let me see, was there one more scenario? Let's try this scenario. How about 3 minus a negative 3? Okay, so I'm going to start off with a neutral field of 5. And, excuse me, I'm going to start with a neutral field using 5 of each counter. I'm not going to use, well maybe I should. How about 7? I'm going to use a little bit less because I can tell that my answer is not going to be super duper big. And my neutral field can use any amount of counters as long as they cancel each other out. So here we go. Read it like a sentence. 3. Okay, I need to have 3. Minus a negative 3. So I'm going to subtract negative 3. Alright, let's take off 3 negatives. And I don't have an answer yet because I still have positive and negatives on here. So what's the answer? 6. Now, if that seems really odd to you, well, how can subtracting a negative give you a positive? We're going to get into that more as time goes on, but this is a great model that illustrates it. You will find that most teachers will simply skip a lot of modeling and they'll simply say, whenever you subtract a negative, it means you're adding. We will get there, and hopefully you will discover that on your own.